How'd you get into this line of work? Did you, when you were, how many people when they're 12 years old say, I want to go into credit card processing fees?
Yeah, not very many. And if any of those do say that as 12-year-olds, you ought to be concerned, I think. But, I did a similar service for many, many years. I was an accounts payable auditor. I would look to see where companies were double paying invoices or missing discounts. And one of the line item fees that we couldn't get any information on was the credit card processing fee. Nobody understood it. So we said, okay, there's something there that we need to dig in and become expert at. And that's what we've done. And for the last, 15, 20 years, that has been our primary focus, is understanding credit card processing and figuring out all the little secrets that Visa may not want you to know about. And it's been really interesting to see how this has evolved over the years. And I'll be honest with you, as businesses become a little bit more familiar, what Visa does is they change. They want to stay one step ahead so that as you begin to figure it out, there's all of a sudden another problem or another change. This CEDP thing is probably the biggest change I've seen in 25 years in this business. And I imagine MasterCard's going to follow.
Jeremy, I've always noticed when I make my donation to my synagogue, or even when I'm going to different kinds of retailers, some of them will absorb the 4% cost, the fee that the credit card charges. Others ask, will you up what you're paying so that we can cover the fee? Explain what is changing and how Verisave plays a role in that.
Sure. So everybody is concerned about those credit card processing fees. Nobody likes to pay them. They're a real pain for lots and lots of businesses, including charities, as you just explained. And they're always looking for ways to pay a lower processing fee. And historically, companies and businesses have been limited on what options they can pursue to reduce those fees. Most businesses thought if they just negotiated better rates, they'd be able to pay lower fees. And while that might have a small little impact, it doesn't do much at all, truly. And so today, there's a lot more options that companies can do and take steps they can take to truly make a big impact, rather, on their credit card processing fees. And so knowing what those are, being aware of those, has become very empowering for a lot of these businesses and organizations out there.
So explain to me what Visa has changed and what is this CEDP? I'm a total Luddite when it comes to your world. It's why you're a CEO and I am not. But what has changed and what is the impact on small business?
Sure. So Visa, first of all, they really dislike credit card surcharging because as a company starts to implement a surcharge, that's likely going to cause less and less people to pay with a credit card. They're going to use other forms of payment. So Visa's revenue will decline as credit card surcharging kicks in. Well, Visa has looked at a lot of different ways in which they can make an impact on keeping their margins, as high as they've been. So CEDP it stands for Commercial Enhanced Data Program. And what that means is, well, historically, if you were to provide more data with your credit card payment, meaning if I'm the store and I include more data with that transaction, the item number, the invoice number, purchase order number, then Visa would charge me a lower fee as the store if I provide that additional information. Well, what was happening is businesses got savvy and they started plugging in fake data, right? So it looked like it was real, real data, and Visa caught on and said, no, there's no more fake data allowed, and we're not going to give you those lower rates anymore by you plugging in fake data. Well, Visa has said, we'll give you these low rates, but now you've got to provide real data. And they have AI tools in place today to determine if that data is real or fake. You might wonder, well, how does how can Visa determine if data that's provided is fake or real? Well, the way that they're doing it is if a company provides the exact same data time and time again, it's likely it's pretty fake, right? It just happens to be the same invoice number every time, right? And of course, that's not going to be reality. And so Visa has these AI tools in place, and if they determine that the data that's being provided today is fake data, you're not going to get the lower rates. So they're playing pretty savvy here. And again, I'll tell you, the AI, they've invested billions of dollars into this AI technology. And this is one of the things that they're really focused in on, is making sure that data is real and accurate. The way that they claim they're using the data for is it makes that transaction less risky, less likely to be a fraudulent transaction. So if you could append all this data to a transaction, it's going to be more likely to be a real, legitimate transaction. So that's their logic, right? You give me more data, it's less likely that this is a fraudulent transaction, and we reward you with a lower rate. That's the primary benefit of that.
And back in October, Visa created the commercial enhanced data program to cut down on the retailers who were not playing by the rules, I'll say. Correct?
That's really accurate. One little side note about that, all of the banks that issue credit cards to their cardholders, those banks get a kickback from every time you use your credit card. So think back to if you get a Sky Miles reward or cash back, the bank doesn't just pull that money out of their own pockets. That money comes from the credit card transaction fees that stores have to pay. So as they were having those lower fees being passed because of the enhanced data, the banks were receiving a lot less revenue as far as the kickback. So a big part of this CEDP is the banks weren't happy that their commission or their kickbacks were getting less and less, and they didn't like it because it was being done with fake data. And so these banks all got together, and Visa, and all the banks, that's what this CEDP is all about, is let's make it a less risky transaction, but let's make it harder for these stores to get a lower interchange rate, and let's maximize the bank's kickback so that they get more as a result of all the different transactions.
Because business owners, I think the figure that your staff shared with me is they might see $200,000 or more in unexpected costs after that October initiation of this program. Do you have clients who are like, hey, what just happened here? And then explain to me how Verisave steps in either to recover the money or make sure I don't have this increased 200+ K expense every month.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly correct. And yes, we do have clients today. I mean, this happened on October 17th, this changeover. We're just over a month away since it happened. And we have one client specifically that in that half-month period, they paid over $300,000 more than they did the prior month in processing fees because Visa made it much more difficult now to achieve those lower rates. They were providing the fake data previously, right? Since October 17th, Visa says no more fake data. Well, as a result of that, they haven't figured out the right way to provide the real data so that their fees can stay lower. So they paid $300,000 more. It's going to be over $500,000 more in a full month of November. And so what does Verisave do? Well, we figured out a way to make sure that when you process a credit card payment, there has to be an integration back to where all that data lives. Where does an invoice number live? Where does a purchase order live? It usually resides back in the ERP. Yeah, your accounting system, right? Or your invoicing system. And so what has to happen is you've got to go back and integrate into the accounting system and pull that data forward and attach the real data to the credit card transaction so that you qualify for the lower fees and pass Visa's audits.
So what I'm hearing is this client who may not have been playing by the rules got hit with this, $300K in 1 month because now they have to play by the rules. And what you do, what Verisave does is you can play by the rules. And if you play by the rules, you can save that money that you were saving when you were playing by the rules. Mm-hmm. You were just lazy. That's what you're doing. Is that essentially it?
That's a fair way to say it, yes. Basically, we help people, businesses, achieve those lower rates the right way, right? So
by complying with the rules.
Yeah, by complying. And what's interesting, I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but there are workarounds, unfortunately, that processors have developed, other payment gateways or software they've developed, that they're still providing the fake data, but they're making it look real. They're randomizing.
Well, I imagine Visa, I got to tell you, they've got AI that can spot fake AI. I would not play that game if I were a small business owner.
I agree. And here's what I can tell you. The initial results are that it is passing the test, which is surprising to me. Visa is their AI audits and everything, because the way the data is being provided, even though, like I said, it's fake data, it just looks real because they're randomizing what data they send. It's passing these tests. But I agree with you 100%. AI is going to catch on to this, right? And so, my prediction is you give it a couple months, 6 months, I think they'll start to flag that. And these merchants will be in the same place they are right now, looking for a solution. But it just surprises me that these processors and gateways, instead of just playing by the rules, they're looking for another workaround, to achieve those lower rates for their merchant clients. There still could be some really interesting things that we can help you with. Maybe your processor is not managing your account for you properly, and it might not even be a CEDP issue. It might be another issue related to your merchant account that's causing you to pay higher fees. Our overall objective is to help our merchant clients to pay the lowest fees they can possibly pay in a number of different ways. CEDP has just become a huge thing, and it is about to blow up and be a really, really impactful change. But for that to be the case, it's probably more in the larger businesses, but any size business, we work with them and help identify inefficiencies because nobody wants to pay those credit card fees. And unfortunately, it's just the cost of doing business sometimes. How can you pay the least amount possible?